our delay, but this is the start of the but this is the start of the Planning and Zoning Committee for today, Monday, February the 14th, 2022. I'll start by taking a quick, I forgot to put my name tag up there, but whatever. But I'll start with a roll call. Councilmember, I'm present. Chair Withers. Bradford is not present today. Councilmember Gamble is present. Councilmember Hager is present. Don't say Councilmember Hall or Murphy. Councilmember O'Connell is present. Councilmember Parker. Vice Chair Rutherford. Thank you, Rosie. I don't see. Is Councilmember Sepulveda here? No, I don't think so. Councilmember Van Rees is present. Councilmember Welsh is here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, so I do detect a quorum. So for today's agenda, ideally, I think most things will be on the consent calendar. Obviously, we're going to have a discussion about item number 1, RS 2022-1326, so that one will not be on consent, but we'll have a discussion about that. And I think for everything else, we do have, for the corridor design studies, we do have substitutes for those, but we have letters requesting approval. Could I go ahead and call on planning just to let us know what is in those substitutes?
Certainly. So you'll find substitutes to both of the corridor design overlays as well as the companion materials bills. And those substitutes are reflective of the Planning Commission's recommendation. They simply remove some parcels from the corridor design overlays that were either zoned SP or perhaps a residential zoning. And so it simply removes those to be consistent with the recommendation that the Planning Commission made. There's also one additional parcel that was removed from one of the corridor designs at the request of the council member. Councilmember Toombs, and so we went ahead and made that adjustment as well.
Thank you, Lisa. So having heard that information, does anyone have any objection? Since we do have letters from the sponsors requesting approval, is there any objection to including the substitutes in our consent agenda? All right, that'll help it to be more speedy. So other than that, on your calendars, the only item that I have that is not on consent would be RS 2022-1326. Is there anything else on the calendar that any member wishes to pull? All right, hearing none. So I will read the item numbers just to give anyone a final chance, but it sounds like hopefully most things will be on our consent calendar because we do have a lengthy agenda. So on our consent calendar would be item number 2, RS 2022-1387. Sponsors are Councilmembers Allen, Withers, Young, and others. This approves an intergovernmental agreement between the state and Nashville for resurfacing of west of Harpeth Valley Road to east of Hillwood. It's a federal project. Item number 3, RS 2022-1388. Sponsors are Councilmember Johnston, Allen, Withers, and Young. This is approves Amendment 2 to an agreement between the state and NDOT for acceptance of work in connection with construction of sidewalks on Harding Place. For bills on second reading, item number 4, BL 2021-884. The sponsors are Councilmembers Murphy and Nash. This pertains to sanitary sewer mains, manhole and easements for property located on 4005 Utah Avenue. Item number 5, BL 2022-1091. Sponsors are Councilmembers O'Connell, Withers, and Young. Authorizes Nashville Urban Venture LLC to construct and maintain underground encroachments at 609 Overton Street. Item number 6, BL 2022-1093. Sponsors are Councilmembers O'Connell, Allen, Withers, and Young. Authorizes Metro government working through Metro Water to enter into an agreement with PR Germantown LLC to provide improved public sanitary sewer service through the construction of an improved stormwater system. Item number 7, BL 2022-1094. The sponsors are Councilmembers O'Connell, Withers, and Young. Authorizes Metro government to accept a new sanitary sewer main and manholes for property located at 806 16th Avenue North, also known as the Lofts at Marathon. Item number 8, BL 2022-1095. The sponsors are council members Hager, Withers, and Young. Authorizes Metro government to accept new water and sanitary sewer mains, fire hydrant assemblies, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements for two properties at 725 Tulip Grove Road and 4811 Lisa Ann Lane, also known as Tulip Springs Townhomes. Item number 9, BL 2022-1096. The sponsors are Councilmembers O'Connell, Withers, and Young. Authorizes Metro government to abandon and remove an existing water main and to accept new water main and fire hydrant assemblies for properties located at 804 14th Avenue North. Item number 10, BL 2022-1097. The sponsors are Councilmembers Young and Withers. Authorizes Metro government to abandon existing public sanitary sewer main and sanitary sewer manhole and to accept a new sanitary sewer mains and sanitary sewer manholes for 3 properties located at 1170, 1176, and 1180 Dickerson Pike, also known as Dickerson Pike Townhomes. Item number 11, BL 2022-1112. The sponsors, Councilmember O'Connell, authorizes the acquisition of an interest in a parcel of real property and approves the granting of an easement above and below the same parcel in connection with the development of a project located at 215 and 217 3rd Avenue North. For bills on third reading, we have item number 12, BL 2021-853. The sponsor is Councilmember Van Reese, applies a historic landmark overlay district to a property located at 435 Old Hickory Boulevard. Item number 13, BL 2021-889. The sponsor is Councilmember Van Reese, applies to the same, but it applies certain material restrictions. Item number 14, BL 2021-954. The sponsor is Councilmember Gamble. Changes the zoning from SP to AR2A for property located at 5000, 5010, and 5010 Clarksville Pike. Item number 15, BL 2021-1037. The sponsor is Councilmember Sledge. Changes from R8 and CS to SP zoning for properties located at 2206, 2208, 2212, 2214, 2218, and 2220 12th Avenue South. Item number 16, BL 2021-1038. The sponsors, Councilmember Sledge, applies to the same as previous, but applies materials restrictions. Item number 17, BL 2021-1056. The sponsors, Councilmember Parker, changes the zoning from RM20A and S to RM20A for property located at 123 Elmhurst Avenue. Item number 18, BL 2022-1057. The sponsors are Councilmembers Taylor and Toombs. Applies a corridor design overlay district to various property located along Clarksville Pike and D.B. Todd Jr. Boulevard. This one does have a substitute, as planning staff have described. Item number 19, BL 22-1058. The sponsors are Taylor and Toombs. Applies to the same Clarksville Pike overlay district as described above, but applies material restrictions. Item number 20, BL 2022-1059. The sponsor is Councilmember Rosenberg. Amends the Stevens Valley specific plan for property located at 441 Union Bridge Road to permit a mixed-use development, all of which is described herein. Item number 21, BL 2022-1060 by Councilmember Rosenberg, applies to the same property as previous, but applies materials restrictions. Item number 22, BL 22-1063. The sponsor is Councilmember Toombs, applies a corridor overlay design district to various properties located along West Trinity Lane. There is a substitute, which planning staff have described. Item number 23, BL 2022-1064 is the same corridor design overlay district as the previous item, with some materials and restrictions. Item number 24, BL 2022-1065. The lead sponsor is Councilmember Syracuse. Changes the zoning from IWD to SP zoning for property located at 911 Perimeter Court. Item number 25, BL 22-1066. The lead sponsor is Councilmember Syracuse. It's the same as previous for 911 Perimeter Court with materials restrictions. Item number 22, BL 2022-1068. The lead sponsor is Councilmember Toombs. Changes the zoning from R8 to RM15NS zoning for properties located at 2137, 2139, and 2139B Buena Vista Pike. Item number 27, BL 2022-1069, the lead sponsor is Councilmember Hager, changes the zoning from CS to MUNS for properties located at 207 and 209 Bridgeway Avenue. Item number 28, which is BL 2022-1070, the lead sponsor is Councilmember Welsh, changes the zoning from SP to MULANS zoning for properties located at Whitsett Road unnumbered. Item number 29, BL 2022-1071, the lead sponsor is Councilmember Toombs, changes the zoning from IR to MUGNS for property located at 407 Great Circle Road at the northern terminus of Athens Way. And finally, BL 2022-1072, the lead sponsor is Councilmember Druffel, changes the zoning from RS40 to SP zoning for property located at 504 Jocelyn Hollow Court at the northern terminus of Jocelyn Hollow Court to permit a mix of uses. Do any of these items for any reason need to be pulled off of consent for discussion? Hearing none, if I could get a motion from Vice Chair Rutherford for the consent calendar.
Motion on consent agenda.
Thank you so much. All right. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Fantastic. So this leaves us to our item for discussion, which is item number 1, resolution RS 2022-1326. The lead sponsor is Councilmember Gamble, and I will ask Councilmember Gamble to make a motion, and then I think we'll have discussion from there. So,
thank you, Chair. I'll move motion to move the 1326.
all right, is there a second? I will second the motion to put it on the table before us. And then, Councilmember Gamble, how would you like to turn it over to the planning table?
Yes, I think I've given an explanation about the bill. Do we need to read the caption so everyone knows that this resolution requests that the Metropolitan Planning Commission and Metro Planning Department review and amend as needed the current general plan for Nashville and Davidson County, Nashville Next, a general plan for Nashville and Davidson County no later than June 30, 2023. This bill was initially introduced on January 4th. It was been deferred twice in order to get more information about the bill. Since the deferrals, I've had an opportunity to speak to individuals one-on-one that have had concerns about it. Also attended a meeting held by Neighbor to Neighbor where over 50 residents attended and were able to ask questions and get more clarification on the intention behind the bill. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to the Planning Department, who is working on a list of areas. It was suggested at the February 3rd planning meeting that instead of trying to redo the entire plan, which is not necessary to redo the entire Nashville Next plan, to maybe limit the focus or scope of work to areas that have had significant growth over the last 10 years, 7 years, and those that have had experienced change or have had developments that have been contingent in those areas. So the Planning Department put together a list based on census data and other information, and will present that to us today.
All right. Well, thank you, Councilmember Gamble, for bringing that, and I will recognize the planning table. All right, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to thank you, Councilman Withers and Councilwoman Gamble and Council for having us here. Since this item was introduced for discussion, we've done work around what an update might look like and appreciate all the feedback that we've gotten from council members since then. So with that, I'll hand it over to Greg Claxton, who's prepared some information for your consideration.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Greg Claxton. I'm the Advanced Planning and Research Manager for the Planning Department. All right. And I'm going to walk through a little bit of background on Nashville Next and kind of how we keep it relevant, the process that we went through to create it, and then how we keep it up to date. And then kind of review the requests for updates that we received from council members and kind of what our recommended process is for managing those. So just as a reminder, Nashville Next is Nashville's long-range comprehensive plan. It's a county-wide visionary document looking ahead 25 years. It was originally adopted by the Planning Commission in 2015. It includes several sections. I'll go through these in a moment. And then it is an evolving document. I'll talk about that in more detail as well. Broadly speaking, Nashville Next came from the public across a 3-year planning process. We had 5 phases that we went through kind of throughout those 3 years. In each phase, we went out to the public and sought guidance and feedback from them, totaling across every phase kind of more than 18,000 participants. So it was a very intense endeavor. We worked very hard. We had a 35-person engagement committee who helped us kind of get into communities throughout the county. Out of that, there were a couple of very broad, very forward-looking, big picture things that shaped the rest of the plan. The first are what we call the Nashville Next Guiding Principles. These are 7 very broad ideas that we heard from the public, what they want for the future of their community. Things like being true to Nashville, fostering strong neighborhoods, ensuring opportunity for all, championing the environment, kind of very big picture themes of kind of what folks wanted for the future of the county. The other big picture thing that came out of it was what we call the Growth and Preservation Concept Map. This is looking kind of county-wide and how we think about different areas, not in a very, kind of fine-grained, detailed way, but broadly speaking, our areas rural that we're looking to preserve or natural that we're looking to preserve, established areas like neighborhoods that we want to more or less maintain as they are, but, improve over time. Or is it kind of areas that we are hoping to focus our growth into, such as our transit corridors and key centers throughout the county. And so this isn't, very detailed policy guidance in terms of what each of these look like, but just helping to think, how do we manage growth throughout the county? Now, I mentioned that there are several different parts of the plan. Those sections, the guiding principles, the growth and preservation concept map, are part of what we call Volume 1, which is just kind of broadly where are we trying to head. There's 7 elements, each of which has a chapter that details it. And then kind of the thing that gets kind of the most on the ground work when we have planning commission meetings, when we take plan amendment requests for Nashville Next, which is the community plans. This is where kind of policies from the community character manual are applied to specific properties throughout the county, and that influences zoning decisions, that influences kind of what zoning you can seek without having a community meeting, that sort of thing. So just as a reminder, the Community Character Manual is a very extensive document that explains and lays out how a series of different community character policies function. It provides implementation guidance for how to use them in zone change requests, and it is intended to help shape the form and character of the community. This is the document that we sort of turn to when we think about a plan amendment or when folks seek a specific plan zoning to see what is it that we are trying to accomplish in this area. And then we apply that to plan throughout the county through the community plans. These have kind of community character, context, background, and history, but then they also sort of have a community character plan map that applies these policies to specific property. Now, we've collected on this slide, and I'll return to it in a moment, the requests from council members tied to this resolution. By and large, it is a mix of things. Some are items that we've been talking about with council members for a couple of years. Hey, what can we do about this particular area or this neighborhood? Some things are very specific changes where it's a recommended policy for a particular few parcels or a particular area. And then some of it is a little broader, like, hey, can we take a look at the neighborhood evolving in this area or that area, or generally, kind of look at the policy all around one particular street or intersection. So it's a mix of things. We think that's going to inform our recommendation in terms of how to work with and process these. We also plan to post this to our website tomorrow morning so the public can review. That's a request that we've gotten. Now, since the adoption of Nashville Next in 2015, we have worked to keep it a relevant document through all of the changes that have gone through in the community. And so we've done that at 3 different levels. One is the 2017 update. This was kind of mostly a cleanup update where we went through and tried to make sure that the community plans in different sections were working, that information was where it was most useful to find. But we also incorporated some substantive changes, particularly through kind of hearing back from the in-motion process about kind of the best alignment for certain transit corridors. We gave them sort of a recommended starting place, and they gave us, some feedback in terms of how to adjust. And so we incorporated that feedback. The second set of changes that we try to do is what we call our small area planning program or policy updates, where we work in a very intensive process for a very small focused area, such as Music Row, the Haynes Trinity update, Dickerson Pike, South and North, these kind of areas. And we work very extensively to both update the policy and provide expanded implementation guidance. And then, of course, we also take plan amendments throughout the year. These are applicant property owner requests to change the policy, usually because there's some zone change or other thing that they want to see. Since 2015, we've had about 150 applications, about 93, just under 100 of which have been approved, addressing about 3,000 acres. This is taking out the small area plans. And so each of these, working at a different level, help to keep the plan up to date over time and responsive. Each of these goes through kind of a community review and community engagement process. Now, we still have a number of projects that we are actively working on or beginning to work on in that small area plan work plan. Continue to work on the East Bank, Edge Hill, North Nashville. We're looking to begin some work around Couchville Pike and Sobro later this year. We were funded recently in the last capital spending plan for work on the Global Mall. But then I want to highlight, as relevant for this discussion, two additional things. One is what we think of as geographic engagement. This is something we were beginning to talk about and structure prior to the pandemic. We're looking to return to it this year, where we assign planning staff, long-range planners, to different geographic areas throughout the county, where the idea is they're paying attention to it. You've got someone who's thinking about that area, those sets of neighborhoods, kind of listening into district or neighborhood newsletters, working with those communities outside of the confines of a plan amendment or a particular study, just trying to say, generally stay in the loop about a particular area. The second thing is we have begun collecting updates for Nashville Next. Again, these are kind of more about kind of CCM updates, more about kind of making sure the document works well and is addressing sort of issues throughout the county correctly. It's not intended as necessarily a big substantive change, although in some cases we do incorporate guidance from some of our small area studies. So for example, the Dickerson South study included a recommendation for changing a little bit of information on the growth and preservation concept map. So we'd look to incorporate that thing that was vetted previously. So as we think about kind of the updates to Nashville Next, kind of at this big countywide, broad brush level, generally what we're thinking about is sort of countywide issues, incorporating major initiatives, such as the transit plan, improving the functioning of the plan. And then we think that it is appropriate to incorporate kind of CCM policy changes with broad community support. What we think it'll be tough to do through this update is to incorporate or make complicated updates or updates that require really working with the community to re-envision what they want for the future of their area. Our recommendation would be to develop that into something that we would include as a small area plan in our work plan. And then any policy changes that need just very extensive community discussion to really work through the ramifications of an issue or because folks are far apart, we think that's tough to incorporate into this process. And so between all of that, our recommendation for what we would recommend going forward for these changes is that planning staff would work with each council member requesting a change in spring of this year to develop a study area, refine where it needs to be refined a little bit more, develop a proposed policy, and then develop a statement of need. So normally, and this is something on the level of a plan amendment when we get those requests. Normally when we have those, there's somebody who wants to do something. A developer is seeking a zone change, they're trying to do a particular project, and they can explain that to the public. And then planning staff can talk about sort of the implications of the policy change with folks as well. Here, what we would look to do at the outset, working with the council member, is talk through, like, what is it that's driving this change? Is it sort of a long-term discussion? Is it something that's, just, kind of collected from, sort of the discussion that the community's been going through over the last couple years? Just trying to nail that down, and so we have a concise explanation of what is the motivation for the change. Second, we would do a preliminary assessment to determine if there's anything sort of critically that we have any critical concerns about with the proposal, such as whether it's large enough to require a dedicated study, or if the request really what you're looking for is a zone change. That's not something we can handle through this process. Here's the other way to address that. We would expect to have that be an ongoing conversation, not you give us information and we just say yes or no. That's a conversation we would have. And then we would incorporate the request into geographic-based engagement or an existing community meeting. We would post material to the website. We know that there's still a lot of concerns about in-person meetings, so we want to be mindful that we're not just looking at sort of a one-time in-person meeting and that's it. And then when we identify kind of requests with broad community support, we can incorporate those into the Nashville Next or CCM update. And so just as a reminder, kind of where I'm going to leave it for now is the list of changes, list of requested changes, or list of assessments that we got from council members. Thank you, and I'm happy to take questions.
So, well, first of all, I want to say thank you to the staff for entertaining this and being so thoughtful and working with council members to sort of narrow down the scope a little bit. I believe I heard y'all say that this will be on the planning department's website at some point.
Yes, we'll be
this week.
posting it in the morning.
I think one thing as it relates to this piece of legislation is I know there's kind of apprehension, I think, in some quarters about like, oh my God, they're going to redo everything. And I'm sure that planning staff are also freaking out thinking we can't redo all this at one time. So I think I don't want to have a terribly lengthy discussion here, but what I want to get at, hopefully in a couple of minutes, is just a discussion about how do we match up this legislation that is on the Metro Clerk's website with what planning hopes to accomplish in the next couple of months, so that the public sees a similar expectation, both from the planning department's communication and from the Metro Council office. That's what I would hope to. How do we align these two things? But with that, I will. I think Councilmember O'Connell had a question or a comment, and then Van Rees, and then Dreffel. So let me start with O'Connell. All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'm trying to reconcile the presentation we heard from Mr. Claxton just now and where Director Kempf was with where the sponsor is. I guess, I'm back to, are we kind of asking planning to do what they're already doing? Is there still a sense that there is a need for the resolution? Is planning asking for the resolution from a staff level? Or whether that's as filed or as amended, where kind of are we on the, does council need to actually act here, or are things already in motion?
From my perspective, the resolution initially was written, I think, very broadly and was a good start to a conversation. After speaking in more detail with Councilwoman Gamble and with Chair Withers, I think we began to understand that perhaps there was interest in more surgical updates to the plan. And so this slide here represents our understanding of those surgical changes that are needed. And so in my mind, I'm here committing to you that we will undertake the process that Mr. Claxton outlined, that we'll meet with the council members listed here, develop a scope, and then give a path forward. I would leave it to council to determine if a resolution kind of laying that out is appropriate or not. But from my perspective, that's where we are. And I would say, Councilman, the downtown code area is treated a little bit differently, and so there is work to be done there as well. But I didn't want to include it because it's sort of it's a kind of a zoning issue, I think. So anyway, that's my response. We're committed to doing what Greg laid out, whether the resolution moves forward as it's written or not. But I will say, I think Councilman Withers is right. This has created a lot of questions in the community, and so I would try to, in my mind, figure out how to best clarify for the folks who are interested what it is that we're doing. If amending the resolution helps doing that or presenting it, then I'm for it. If this body thinks that there's a better way to convey the work program, then I would rely on y'all's good guidance there to lead us on that question.
Councilmember O'Connell, did you have any further comment?
I did not. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, I think I have Councilmember Van Rees.
Yes, I just have a point of clarity because it's the first time I've seen this list. And Hancock has indicated a change of study north of State Route 45, but the other definitions are a little bit more specific. And of course, District 8 is also north of State Route 45, and it's the first I've seen this. So it was her intent mainly on the east side to a certain point, or I just wanted some clarity on that.
That's our understanding. It's kind of been a series of chain of different communications with her, but that is an area we would definitely seek to clarify. Our understanding is that it's the area within her district.
Okay, if you could clarify that, if this is going to the public, because that's just going to create more questions, because there's so much happening
Sure.
on Williams and on Gallatin Pike in general, that when you say that, that goes all the way to the county line, the way it's written there. So,
We
okay,
will.
thank you.
All right, and next I believe I saw Councilmember Druffel. Go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Appreciate it. Question is, are you going to do this in every district, or only in the districts that you, where the council people want to look at a change? I have a district that's very happy and worked really hard to make sure, and I think to Chair Withers' comments, I don't want, people are already starting to ask me a question. They're concerned that Nashville Next may change, and in our quiet little District 23, it's a pretty big deal that we keep it the way they want. So I just want to sort of get some sense of direction on that.
So this list is just the council members who submitted requests in response to the prior discussion about this resolution. So that's, I mean, as we take a look at Nashville Next more generally, we may identify very small scale changes that aren't substantive in nature that we would bring forward, but we would look for ways to communicate to the public, because we want to do kind of everything that we do related to updating Nashville Next. We want that to be transparent and available to everyone.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is you're looking at very small areas that you might consider changes, but if we're not requesting that in our district,
we're not looking to open up kind of substantive changes beyond that.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question, Councilmember Druffel. Any other members wishing to have a question or comment? Councilmember Allen, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for clarification, I mentioned something just because I have been working in another council member's district, and I do not want to presume to mess in their district without lots of conversation on that. But just in noticing there, it was very clear to me that there were neighbors who would like to see that be neighborhood maintenance as opposed to neighborhood evolving. So I think I put that down. So I guess my question would be, it would make me nervous to know that list was just going to go into something without some more input into refining what that language was.
It sounds like we had wanted to make this transparent because we've gotten so many questions, but it sounds like maybe we need to think about how to do a little more scoping to clarify the study areas prior to publish sizing the list. I mean, is there a scenario where we can simply say, here are generally some areas where we're going to work with council members and communities a little more as if it's going to be a dialogue? Would that help address your comment, Councilwoman Allen?
And I think based on the emails that I've been getting, the most important thing is which direction are these looking to go in? Because I think most of the concerns we've heard are from neighbors who assume that the move is towards a higher density policy. And that's not necessarily what I see in some of those, but it's not necessarily clear. So perhaps being more specific about what's contemplated would, I think, allay a lot of figures right there.
Director Kemp, do you have any, or Mr. Claxton, do you have any thoughts about that? Or
I mean, I think it's a little tricky for us because in some cases, I mean, like the process that we're recommending is to develop that and vet it more carefully. You know, I think we're kind of in this position where we have a list, we want to make it clear, but we can't. I'm reluctant to read too much into it. I mean, and we can try to kind of clarify the language on this, but some of the requests that we got were pretty general.
anything else, Councilmember Allen? All right. I'll turn it back over to the sponsor, Gamble. There you go.
Thank you. I just wanted to make it clear that this resolution is not an attempt to circumvent the amendment process. That will continue, that will do. It's an attempt to prioritize the process in general of reviewing areas that have had change or significant growth since the plan was adopted, and look and where we're hearing from constituents about that change, and taking the time to review those areas specifically. This list is very helpful. Thank you all for the work that you've done and what you presented today. It does really help make everything more clear. I think that this list should be an attachment to the resolution, and if we change the language to say, or amend the language to say that the scope of work will be specific to the areas in the attachment, I think that would help. I think more clarity on the request for change will help as well. I fully support that and think we need to do that. We want to be as transparent and as clear as possible. And I also want to remind everyone that this process, amendment process, will continue to involve community engagement. Nothing is going to be changed without the community having an opportunity to provide input if it needs to be changed. Everything is, we're not saying that it has to change. We're saying that we need to review it. And if there's consensus that it needs to change, then we'll look at the change and what it needs to change to be. But this is a process that we have in place, and that we're making it a priority now at this time as we enter in the 7th year since the plan was adopted. I think and I believe that this, going through this, will not only, it will make the process more, we'll have more community engagement is what I'm trying to say. We'll have more community engagement in the process than even the first time around, because I've heard from many constituents in District 3 specifically that were not involved in the process the first time around. They lived in the area for 40 years, and a plan was adopted that they weren't a part of and didn't have any input in. So this gives an opportunity for those folks who felt left out to now have an opportunity to have their voice be heard. And also, it would provide an opportunity to have more continuity in the land use policy across the city. So that's the intention behind the bill, and I just want to make that clear. And if we need to, I'm losing my mask. If we need to defer in order to amend the language, I'm open to that. I'm not sure. This would be the 3rd deferral, so I guess we need clarification from.
So if we defer at this time, that would be an indefinite deferral.
Okay.
However, that may actually, I don't know that it necessarily means that it would take a lot of time, but planning staff can continue to think about how to phrase this and put it out before the public. And maybe if there is an indefinite deferral, you could reintroduce it, perhaps with a substitute, or bring back a fresh resolution that better
Encapsulates all of that
captures
information.
the limited scope.
Okay. In that case, I'll move for the indefinite deferral to clear up the language and make sure we have all of the requests succinct and clear.
Okay. And is
Thank you.
our planning staff on board with that? Okay. So we have a motion for an indefinite deferral. Is there any discussion? Is there a second? I think I heard a second. Is there any discussion on the indefinite deferral motion? So hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Well, thank you so much, Councilmember Gamble, for bringing that forward, and thank you to Director Kempf, Mr. Claxton, and the whole planning staff for your work on this. I think this will be helpful. So with that, that concludes the business of the Planning and Zoning Committee. We do want folks to stick around because we are going to have the joint discussion at the end of the committee meetings today about the capital improvements budget prioritization process. But I think next up is affordable housing. So thank you, everyone.